No email list yet? That's cute. But also, let's face it, that's risky. You're building a business on borrowed ground if social media is your only plan. One algorithm shift, and poof, your people are gone. Or maybe you do have a list, but your emails are given 2009 newsletter nobody asked for vibes. It is time to level up. Flowdesk is your friend. Flowdesk makes it easy to send stunning, high converting emails without the tech headache. It's drag and drop simple, and the designs, chef's kiss. Start strong or finally glow up what you've already got. Either way, head to jantouchberry.com/email and get 50% off your first year. Seriously, the longer you wait, the more money you're leaving on the table. Let's fix that, shall we? That's jantouchberry.com/email for 50% off your first year. Have you ever heard the saying that we are all a work in progress? I am really feeling that this week. I am feeling like I take two steps forward and three steps back sometimes. And this specific area in my life, just when I feel like I have a handle on it, the Lord really shows me, no, 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 you don't have a handle on it, but I have a handle on it. And so today we're going to dive into an episode that is a little bit more vulnerable. And if you know me, I don't like being vulnerable, but the Lord is calling me to vulnerability today because I feel like it's going to help somebody. And so if you are up for a little bit of a bearing of the soul, so to speak, stay tuned because that's exactly what this episode is going to give you, along with hopefully some things maybe to think about so that you can bear your own soul to the Lord. Let's dive in. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, exploring how intimately faith applies to every part of your life and how you can live that faith every single day in the marketplace. I've felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of the few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. Hey, friends, welcome back to Her Faith at Work. I would like to remind you really quick before we jump into this episode that if you are not already on my email list, I would love to invite you to get signed up. It's super easy. You can click the link in the show notes to get that done, or you can just go to jantouchberry.com/newsletter and you can get signed up there. It is not a repeat of this podcast. It is going to give you additional value, additional tips, additional growth resources, additional things that the Lord is speaking to me and things that He is showing me and things that I'm loving in my life and in my business. And so I just really invite you to join the list because it's a lot of fun. And I have been enjoying people who've been writing back and saying how much they are getting out of the email. And that happens more often than not every single week these days. And so thank you guys for those of you who've taken the time to hit reply and tell me your thoughts or let me know what you like. And there's been a couple of them that you just have shot back the reply. This really made me laugh. Thanks. I needed this today. And so just know that if you reply, I read every single one of them and I cherish them. So the email list is becoming quite a little community that I'm very fond of. And so I hope that if you are not in our email list community, that you will join us. So that is again in the show notes or jantouchberry.com/newsletter. So today we're going to jump into a topic that, as you heard in the intro, is a little bit vulnerable or a lot vulnerable. And I want to caveat all of this by saying that I'm sharing with you something that the Lord has been working on in me for a lot of years and is probably going to continually, it's going to be a work in progress. And that's okay. So, I want to start by giving you a little bit of a backstory. I have struggled with perfectionism my entire life. My friends and I used to jokingly say I need to be the president of Overthinkers Anonymous because I will literally get stuck in the overthinking loop because it has to be right. And I am a driver personality on the disc. I'm a Enneagram 8. Some people would say I'm type A-ish personality. I have a very strong personality if you know me. And I used to think that those things were weaknesses that I needed to get over. I have been told throughout the course of my life that they were. I just need to get over it, that they're flaws. But what I've come to realize as I have grown and matured and plugged into the Lord, that those are things that He ingrained in me. He created me that way. And I think that those strengths and abilities can be used in a healthy way or an unhealthy way, just like anything in life, right? That's how we all are. That's the way that God created us. And we can use the gifts and the talents and the abilities and the tendencies that we have in a healthy way or in an unhealthy way. So, a few years ago, I was working with a business coach who was talking to me about my need for perfection and the disease that perfectionism could be in a business. And he was really digging into where that came from. And this man, I'll just side note this. I do not believe that he was a believer. And so he was coming at this from a very heady, worldly way of thinking. But it still is going to translate, I think. So he was asking where all this was coming from and when did I first notice that I had this drive for perfection. And he was digging and digging, as every good coach should, right? There was nothing wrong with this. He was doing his job. And so as I was thinking back, I started to realize that this was something that had been in me from a very young age. That when I was small, manifested like needing to be the best on my team or the best in the art class. I needed to win the blue ribbon in the track meet. I needed to, fill in the blank, however, I was going to be the best. And I think that during this time of revelation, the Lord showed me that I don't think I'd realized the origin of this before, that all of it really stemmed from the fact that I needed my parents to love me. And I know that for some of you, that may sound funny. Of course, your parents are supposed to love you, but I'm adopted. And I think in every adopted kid's mind, somewhere, there's some seed of why was I put up for adoption, right? I was adopted at 2 days old. I've always known that I was adopted. I had an amazing life. It's been something that is just who I am. It's a part of me that I've always understood. But what I didn't realize until that moment was the connection between my drive to be worthy of love and my need for love and being wanted, and how that played out in all of these other areas of my life. And specifically for this context, the perfectionism that I was struggling with that was keeping my business stuck. So, this coach and I talked about it for a while, and he suggested that I do this exercise that basically involved me going back in my mind to the time that I first remembered someone saying something about me being unworthy or about me being not good enough. And it typically, apparently, in a child life happens around first or second grade. I guess maybe we're super impressionable around that age. Maybe it's the first time we're really like self-aware. So we were going back in my mind and we're trying to help me remember this moment that I had this memory of somebody telling me I wasn't worthy or I wasn't good enough. And instead of first or second grade, the picture that I saw in my mind was a hospital room and a voice that I took to be my birth mother's saying, "Take her away. I don't want to see her." Now, whether or not that actually happened, I don't know. But at some point in my mind, Maybe it was around first or second grade. I don't know. That connection was made between adoption and not being wanted and not being worthy to be wanted. It's, I don't fully understand it, and I may not ever fully understand it. I'm still working this out with the Lord. The point is that whether or not it actually happened, it's been something that's influenced my life for really as long as I can remember. And the awareness of that origin has just been over the last 4 years. So I do want to cut into the story here and say that I have met my birth mother. That is another amazing story for another podcast, maybe. But we have a wonderful relationship, and I do not get the feeling from her at all that I was unworthy or unwanted. I understand why she gave me up for adoption. So it's actually a really beautiful story. I had a beautiful life with my adoptive parents. I love them very much. Never felt unworthy or unwanted. So this was something in my life that really was of my own making. And so now, fast forward, last week I was listening to a podcast, which I'm going to link in the show notes because it is awesome. And it literally shook me to my core because this is, again, something that I'm probably going to be working on the Lord with until the day I die. So, in this podcast, the guest was author Wendy Blackland, and she was describing a time in her life where she felt the Lord was calling her to write a book. And she had really been struggling with imposter syndrome. Should she write this book? Could she write this book? Why was he calling her to write this book? She'd never written a book before. How was she going to write a book? And so she decided that she was going to start declaring that she would be an author. And so she started every single day saying, I will be an author. I will be an author. I will be an author. I will write a book. I will write a book. I will write a book. And she said that there was one day that the Lord stopped her and said, no, 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 no. You need to change your words. You are an author. It's not you will be. You are an author. And she said, well, how can I be an author? I haven't written a book yet. And the Lord said to her, Wendy, when I create an apple tree and it grows, but it dies before it's able to produce the fruit, is it still an apple tree? And she said, well, yes, because you created it to be an apple tree. And he said, exactly. So I created you to be an author. And so if you die before you write your book, when you get to heaven, will you still be known as an author? She stopped and she thought, and she said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, I can tell you that you will be an author, but in heaven, you'll be known as the author that didn't produce her fruit. And I will tell you that everyone that I have told that story to since I heard it last week, their reaction has been, ouch. God, that hurts. Ouch. But here's what I took away from this, and the reason that I told you all my backstory about feeling unworthy. Because I believe that from a very young age, Satan chooses to tell us lies. Lies that he knows can stop us from living into the person that God created for us to be. And today, I'm a woman in what I consider the prime of my life, and I still struggle with allowing Satan to tell me something that's not true. The enemy knew the power that I had when I was born. He knew as a daughter of the king, and he literally started at that moment speaking lies into my heart and in my mind, telling me that the opposite of that was true. Before the beginning of time, God created me to be something and someone, to have a calling and a purpose and a gift on my life. I am his child, and I'm worthy because I'm his child. I'm worthy of love. I'm worthy of belonging. I'm worthy of doing great things. I have the power of Christ in me to accomplish the things that he has created me to do, the things that he gifted me with, the strength and the authority and the beautiful gifts to lead people. And I'm worthy of all that because he says I am, not anybody else, because God says I am. And I have at different times in my life, sometimes more, sometimes less, but at different times in my life, I've really allowed Satan to sit on my shoulder and whisper these lies in my ear that stop me in my tracks, that stop me from producing the fruit that I was destined to produce. And I can tell you that what I don't want is to get to heaven and be known for something, for being something that God created me to be that just didn't produce fruit because I didn't have time, or I doubted myself, or I was feeling the imposter syndrome, or I let the perfectionism get me stuck in this loop of indecision and not moving forward. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that. So, why am I telling you all of this today? Well, it's because I believe that this is all of us in some way. It's me, I'm struggling with it. It's you. Whether you're struggling with it right in this very moment, or whether you were last week, or whether you will be next week. God created you with gifts and talents and with a purpose and with a calling. And He created you with a very, very specific fruit that He expects you to be bearing on this earth at different times. I believe that also at different times, we all fall into a state where we are vulnerable and we allow Satan to whisper things in our ears, the lies that take up residence in our hearts and our minds, and they stop us from growing into the fruit producing creation that God created us to be. And so, what I've been doing, what God has challenged me to do, is to really sit with Him and let Him speak over me the truth of who He created me to be and the truth of the fruit that He has for me to bear. And then, y'all, all I know to do is rebuke the devourer who seeks to steal and to kill and destroy my calling and to let the fruit rot and go to waste. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to do that anymore. In Romans 12:2, we are challenged to not conform to the pattern of the world, i.e., the enemy, but be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So, what does that mean? How do we do that? Well, Philippians 4:8 says, brothers and sisters, whatever's true, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's pure, whatever's lovely, whatever's admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about those things. What are you allowing into your heart and your mind that is creating this little wedge that Satan can get into, that he can take up residence? He didn't get to do that if you're thinking on all of the goodness and the things that God has for you, the things that are excellent and praiseworthy and lovely and admirable and right and noble and true. The truth. If you're thinking about the truth, Satan has no place. And so I hope that you're going to join me in telling him that he has no place in your heart and your mind anymore, that the lies stop today. He's not allowed. And the only way that we can do that is through the power and strength of Jesus Christ in us, because we're human and we can't do it on our own. Staying plugged into Him, listening to His voice, journaling with Him, hearing what He speaks over us on a regular basis, and listening over and over again, or reading over and over again the affirmation of what He calls you. That's super important. I think about it like a child, right? It's like the movie The Help. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's one of my favorites. But if you haven't seen it, highly recommend. There is a nanny that is taking care of this little girl who doesn't have a very nice mother. Her mother does not speak nice things to her. And so every morning, this nanny gets her up and she looks that sweet baby girl in her eyes and she says, "You are kind, you are smart, and you are important." And those are words that could change that little girl's life forever. And it's like, who are you letting speak to you every morning when you get up, before you go to work, before you go to do the things that you've been called and created to do in your life? Who gets to say those words to you? Is it the Lord? Is it your heavenly Father who loves you? If you let Him, if you make time for Him, He's going to speak truth into your life. Or are you getting up first thing in the morning and allowing the enemy to grab you on the shoulders and look into your eyes Or are you allowing the enemy to grab you on the shoulders first thing in the morning, look into your eyes, and tell you lies that are going to stop you from being who God's created you to be and from bearing the fruit that He created you to bear? You get to choose, guys. We all get to choose. So this week, I really hope that you allow God to use this message to speak to you that you are worthy, that He has called you to a purpose, and that you will bear fruit if you allow Him to speak truth into your life and you stop allowing the enemy to take residence in your heart and stop speaking lies over you. You have the authority to tell him to get the heck out. And when we're able to do that, the change that it will affect in this world, we will not be able to be stopped. The business that He has put in your heart to build, the customers that He has called you to serve, the family that He has called you to breathe life into, so that they can then in turn go out into the world and breathe life and bear fruit for the kingdom. We're the start of a chain. Are you going to be the one that breaks the link in the chain? Or are you going to be the one who strengthens the link with the bond of the Lord so that the chain of fruit bearing continues? Guys, I really just pray that this sinks in deep into your life and that you take it to heart and that you have a little one-on-one time with the Lord and let Him speak life and truth over you today. Love you guys. Have a great week. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.